Shabbat Shalom Mishpacha. Okay, our Pashas this week will begin with the Torah Pasha 18, which is Mishpatim in the book of Exodus, chapters 21, and it starts with, now these are the judgments which you shall set before them. Of course, talking about the house of Israel, the Hebrew nation. And then it starts listing, the very first item it talks about is an indentured servant. If you buy an Abrahu, a Hebrew servant, he shall serve 6 years, and the 7th he shall go out free and pay nothing. If he comes in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master has given him a wife, and she has borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her masters, and he shall go out by himself. So, and it then continues. And the interesting part here is there are in this particular portion of Torah 53 laws which are given to the house of Israel, children of Israel, and also the promise is given to the children of Israel to bring them to the Holy Land, and warning them not to practice the ways of the people who really don't follow God's laws. They follow their own man-made laws, or perhaps they follow the laws and traditions of their forefathers, and they worship idols, and they worship moon, sun, and stars, and everything else. That's creation. They worship the creation, not the Creator. So they are warned against not to follow those people and to follow these laws. Now the question would be, here's a question: why would we consider that the Torah laws are holy or better than the laws that the citizens, like other people have made? Why would we class that? Why would we think that the laws that are made by men and women, of course, why aren't they better than the Torah? Or the other way to put it is, why is Torah laws better than those laws? And for that, we just have to look at the ancient times. We can go back to Sodom and Gomorrah's laws, and there was a law there that if a foreigner was to come into the country, he was not to be entertained, he wasn't to be looked after, and he could not leave the country of Sodom and Gomorrah with any property. So that was a law, and that was considered a civil law. Now you can imagine what kind of law that is, created by human beings. That's one law. And there were several other laws that were there that were unjust laws. And for those unjust laws, God brought about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. And if you think that's just a story, some of the people might think it's just a story, it's just a legend, it's not true. And if that's what people think, then they just got to go to Israel. I've been there, and you got to go to the region which today is classed as the region of Sodom and Gomorrah, and you will find still large deposits of sulfur are still there, because sulfur was thrown down upon them from the skies, from the heavens. So those deposits are still there. It's kind of funny, because you don't find heavy sulfur deposits in other parts of Israel, only those parts. So that's interesting, that's not just a legend or just a story to teach a lesson. It's actually something that happened, people that lived there, civilization that existed before us, and what happened to them, and how they were punished by God. So we then, if we move on to the Greek and the Roman era, and we find that in the Greek and the Roman era, it was considered wrong and a weakness to give donation and give charity. Like, if you wanted to give charity to some beggar on the street, they considered that a weakness, and they said it was better for the beggars, or people who did not have food, or people who were disabled, or people who could not take care of themselves. They considered it better for them to die and be rid of society than to be part of society, because they considered those people to be weakness and a burden on society. Now, in consideration, the laws of the Torah say otherwise, that we are to give, there was a whole system of tithing set up, Sadaqah set up. Then there was a charitable system set up within the temple, with the 1 year, 2 year, and 3 year tithes that was set up for, taking care of people. Perhaps, women who were divorced without food, women who were had no husband, they were widows and orphans. So there was a whole system there that the priest took care of. And so God did not see that as a weakness. God did not see people who are without, say, somebody to look after them. He did not consider that as a weakness. Therefore, we can see why the laws of the Torah are much, much more better than the laws that the citizens make themselves by themselves. With the comparisons that we can see from the ancient times, their laws were not nearly as good or as just. These laws are better because they are given by the divine author of this, creation of this world, of these universes. This is why those laws are better. Now, they're only better if you follow them. And if you don't follow them, then of course you're going to have no benefit for those laws. So in order to make them better for you, you have to obey and follow those laws. And 9 times out of 10, people do not obey the laws. And they just, run around doing their own thing, and then they end up in all sorts of troubles, and then they come running back to help. Now, there was a guy, and let me tell you a story, true story about a guy from Ghana. He went to UAE, went to Dubai, and he got into some trouble over there. And he just heard of me, from somebody, I guess somebody in Ghana who had gone for a visit and belonged to London, or lived in London at the time. And so this man had told this young man about me, and when he got into trouble, they were going to throw him out of the country, and they were going to maybe imprison him and then throw him out of the country. And then he writes to me one day out of the blue. I never heard from him before. He writes to me and says, "Oh, so-and-so person told me about you. Please, I've got stuck in some problem. I've got all these cases pending on me, and and I'm sorry, and I shouldn't have been there, and I got involved in trouble or whatever. And can you please pray for me?" And I said to him, who are you? Oh, and he said, so-and-so person told me about you. And I said, well, so-and-so person. You don't just turn up at somebody's door. You don't give no offering to God. You present no offering. You just come and knock on the door and say, please help me. Okay? All right. He's an ignorant man. He's an idiot. He doesn't know how the rules and regulations of God's laws. So I said, okay, fair enough. I will pray for you so that you'll be free from your case. And so I prayed for his case, for him, and he, lo and behold, he didn't get charged. They let him go, and he was exonerated. Okay? Now, what should he have done at that point? He should have given an offering, a sadaqah offering, a charitable offering towards the God for being, for what God had done for him. But did he do that? No, he didn't do that. Didn't send a penny. Okay, fair enough. On your bike. Don't come back. And then what he does, he comes back again the next time. This time he comes back and says, Rabbi, I'm sorry, last time I didn't realize. And I said to him, what the hell are you doing over here? What do you want now? Did I not tell you last time that you don't just come empty-handed before God to ask for a favor? And he's like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize and I forgot, and so on and so forth. And, makes his excuses. And then he says to me, oh, I've applied for a job, and I had hepatitis C at one time, and he wasn't, he was afraid that he was still somehow carrying the disease and that he will not get the job that he had applied for because they would rule him out if they found that he had hepatitis C. So he comes back to me and says to me, Rabbi, please pray for me. I'm sorry. I will send you the tithe. I will send you offering, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? I say, okay. So I pray for him, And guess what? He goes through his medical, and his medical is clean, and he gets the job. And do I hear from him? No, I don't hear from him. Nothing. So he comes back after that again. Such an ignorant man that he comes back the third time. And you know what I told him this time? Get lost and don't ever come back again. So I threw him out at the third count because of his impudence, his stupidity, that you are making this like a joke and a laugh. You thinking this is some kind of, place where you can just come and ask for prayers and you can get what you want and then you can get lost and, off with it. So, this is the kind of behavior that I have seen with people from Ghana and other places, Kenya included. So that's why, I had issued the instructions a while ago not to venture to Africa and not to even touch, people from Africa. Just let them be and let them get on with their own lives and let them live with their pagan idols and their, stupid worship that they do. Forget about them. We're not interested in them. That's why we made the conclusion that it was a waste of time to go and try to teach them God's laws because they would not listen. And that's what we actually saw. In the behavior that we saw was exactly that behavior in real life. And they are like the pot. They are the pot that fills up with water, and the water's brimming full, kind of falling all over the place, but they never get satisfied. That's your African people, by the way. And those of you who desire to go to Africa, go to Africa and leave United States and don't ever come back, okay? Because United States is not for you. United States is for those people who value the country, who love the country, and who love the people. That's who United States is for. It's not for miscreants and those people who are going to cause trouble in the country and be troublesome to others. I was telling somebody today that there is a supplement that only the United States sells, and it's for a heart condition. If you have a heart problem, blood pressure, pain in your chest, things like that. And, that supplement, that particular version of the supplement, sure, other people make it. England makes it. Europe makes it. Even maybe countries in the East make it. But their standard, their quality, and their effectiveness is not the same as the company that makes it in the U.S. And the company's been around since early 19th century. So my point was that the medicine is, the supplement is only $30. And maybe, if somebody over here where I am, if somebody wanted it, they'd have to spend another $30. So they'll spend $60 to get maybe a couple of months supplement. Now that, $60 is not possible for a lot of the people here in the East. It is not possible for them to pay $60 for a medicine for a month or 2 months because they can't afford it. Okay? So, people who live in the United States or perhaps Europe, they can afford the medicine, they can afford the supplement, they can buy it, they can use it, and they can be well off. Because, I have heard testimonies of people taking that supplement and their, heart being cleaned up because they had problems with, different types of heart problems, and their arteries being cleaned up. I've heard of stories of that. But my point is this, that people who live in the West do enjoy the benefit of having that medicine. So is the U.S. good or is it bad? It's wonderful because, the medicine or the supplement is made in the U.S. They make it, they make it from good materials, good plants, and so therefore they supply a need for people who live in those parts of the world, and it's wonderful. So why would I or somebody else who lives in the U.S., why would we downgrade the U.S., call it names, or do backstabbing against our president or speak evil words? Why? I mean, does that make sense? I know many people who speak evil words against the president, Biden, and, some people are so ill-informed that they think that President Biden is not in power, but somebody else is. Did you know that there are people in America living there who think that President Biden is not in power, but somebody else is in power? In other words, Biden is just in the office, like, he's just, a puppet maybe, and somebody else tells him what to do. But that's the level of thinking of some people who live in America. And maybe some people even think that Mr. Trump is still in power. I mean, go figure. Is Mr. Trump in power or not? I don't think so, not right now. But the next election, of course, Mr. Trump is going to stand for the election, and if he wins the election, he can come into power. But right now, Mr. Trump is not in power. He, in fact, has all sorts of cases against him, whether for good, whether for bad, it doesn't matter. Whether he done wrong or whether he didn't do wrong. My point is, he's not in power. Okay? Even a little baby, who sees the news, or maybe doesn't see the news, even a little baby will know, a 6-year-old will know that Mr. Trump is not in power. Because when Mr. Trump is in power, everybody will know Mr. Trump is in power. Even people in the East will know he's in power. They make movies in India. They make movies in India, and they talk about, they throw in a little gaffe there, or a little something saying that, Mr. Trump's government, now you're coming over here in Mr. Trump's government. Basically, they made that movie when Mr. Trump was in power, and they used the statement that, Mr. Trump is in power in the U.S. and now we're doing this, and so they kind of add that statement in the movie, just to tell people who the president is in the U.S., when he was back then, back in 2016 onwards. So now, of course, he's not in power, and now when they're making movies in India, and I think there was one movie, they mentioned President Biden in that movie. I think it was a Punjabi, it was a Punjabi movie, and they mentioned President Biden by name. It happens, in movies, they say who the president is in the U.S. And although I haven't heard anything about the president or the prime minister in the UK yet in any movies. So, my point is that, the names of the presidents might get mentioned in soap operas or wherever. So, the point that I'm trying to make is that there are a lot of conspiracy theories out there, okay? And they make all sorts of claims. Now, I have said it often, and I'll say it again. I'm sorry, I'm not in with conspiracy theories. I haven't got time to waste with conspiracy theories. I would, say the same for people out there who want to better their lives, who want to be somebody in their life. Don't waste your time with these conspiracy theories. Work on yourself. Work on yourself. Build yourself. When you are in a better position, when you're in a better position financially and with your family, you have a good relations, wonderful relations, then you don't really care. You don't care about what other people are doing. The least concern you should have is what other people are doing. Because if you focus, and some people do, and this is basically a statement that says that if you are focusing on what other people are doing, then you are not going to get any better yourself. In other words, because you spend all your time watching other people. Like, if you spend all your day wondering about what Bill Gates does, for instance, or what Mark Zuckerberg does, if you spend all your time wondering about, looking up those guys and following them, or what Elon Musk does, and because you set in your mind that they're somehow evil, and because they're evil, you have to follow them around. You have to be a lunatic to follow those people around, and then to pretend that you know better. Well, guess what? You're the idiot, because those guys, they are billionaires in their own right. They have their businesses, they have their lives, and they couldn't care less what you think about them. So why would you waste your time chasing after those people when you're not going to get nothing out of them? Think about it for a second. How wasteful that is, that you spend so much time after other people who are going to give you nothing in return. Now, Many of you desire to become rich. You desire to become rich like, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, but yet you may criticize those people as evil or no good or whatever. This is what some people do. I'm not saying everybody does that, but I'm saying there are people in the US who spend their entire day just chasing after these people and trying to prove to themselves that somehow these people are evil and they're trying to reduce the planet or whatever. There's too many stories that I don't even waste my time with it. So listen, stop wasting your time chasing after the wind, because you don't get nothing out of it. Spend your quality time doing things which matter to you and which bring you happiness, which bring you joy, which bring you success. Spend your time with that, and then you will get to where you want to be. This is my instructions to you. Don't chase after what Bill Gates does with his family, or what he does with his association, or how much vaccines he sends into Africa. I don't really care. I'm not interested. What I'm interested in is where I am, where my life is, where my relationship is with God. That's what I'm interested in, and that's my interest only. And my students, of course, how well off my students are, how I can benefit them, how I can better their lives, and how what I can teach them to better their lives. That's where my interest is. My interest is not in how many vaccines Bill Gates sent to Africa, and is he planning to kill people or is he planning to save people? I'm not interested in that, because either way, it's not my concern, and neither it should be yours either. So coming back to the Torah, we are taught different laws in our books. Now, we are also taught that one of the laws mentioned in the book of Exodus was in chapter 21, verse 18, was if men strive together, if two men fight and one strikes another with a stone or with his fist, then they were saying that the man is liable for damages, whether he did it deliberately or whether he did it willfully. Do you know today this is in our statutes, this is in our books, that if one man hurt another man and in some way damaged him or his property, then of course he can sue that person, and because the other person is liable. Now, by the way, this law came out of the Torah, believe it or not. And also the Torah goes to mention, and this is mentioned in the Midrash and Bava Kama 26a, that if the damage that was caused, if somebody was blinded, if somebody's neighbor or somebody was blinded, or you broke some article, full compensation must be made. That also the Torah said in verse 19 that he shall pay for the loss of his work, and he shall fully heal him. By the way, this is still on the statutes in our books. In the West, this is actually a law. So many laws that we see in our statutes and books in the US and in UK and other countries in the West are taken from the Torah, and maybe they may be tweaked here and there a little bit, but they are still present. So from this law, where it says that if he's lost work and he shall be responsible for his full healing him, from here it was derived that a physician, a doctor, was allowed to heal a person. So do you see the point? The point is this, that the Torah actually points out, it doesn't say that God will naturally heal, miraculously heal everybody. It doesn't say that. And some people, yes, God can heal them miraculously. Other people, it's very clear that they need a doctor. Because it says, he shall pay for the loss of his work and he shall fully heal him. In other words, he has to go to the doctor, pay for his injury, and allow him to be healed. There was a story of a rabbi that his wife had fallen ill. And the doctors were unanimous in their opinions that there was no hope of her recovery. And when her father-in-law, who was another rabbi, he was told of the doctor's verdict. He said that he said our books derives from the Torah that a physician is allowed to heal. But he said that nowhere has a doctor been given the right to declare a human incurable. Listen to me, this is very important. I knew a family, in fact I know a family here in the East. They went to the doctor, the man had a stroke. This is, by the way, recent. This is like maybe 2 weeks ago. He had a stroke. He went to the doctor, to the hospital. They treated him and they turned around and said to his relatives, who are related to my wife, by the way. They said to his relatives that take him home, we cannot help him, he is incurable. See what the Torah said? The Torah said that a doctor has no right to qualify somebody incurable. But here in the West and in the East, there are these doctors, because they read books and they get their information from books. They're not really, doctors that are going to give you hope. They're going to give you a black mark. They're going to say, oh, I'm sorry, sir, your disease is beyond cure, and so just better go home and, meet your relatives and ready to say goodbye to the world. And yet that is not true, because the Torah says a doctor is not allowed to declare. He's allowed to heal, but he's not allowed to declare that a person is incurable. So what happened? That man, he went home. The hospital declared him incurable. He went home. They took him somewhere else, to some other maybe herbalist or some other kind of doctor. And I heard that the man is now recovering. You see my point? Some people have made doctor a god, maybe even beyond God. He is so beyond God that the doctor says to you, hey, take 2 pills. You're like a puppy, yeah, I'll take 2 pills. This is the problem, is that a lot of people in America and everywhere else have, that they're making doctors not just a doctor, but a god. When you take a god upon yourself, then you shall pay the penalty for that as well. Okay, so don't ever do that. Make a decision for yourself where, if a doctor helps you, great, wonderful. But don't allow a doctor to tell you that you can't be healed, or you need, surgery, and you need this, that, and the third. Don't go with that, because doctors are often wrong, by the way. So, having said that, there were many laws given in the Torah, and there were also laws given about lending money to people. It says, when you lend money to any of my people, chapter 22, verse 24, book of Exodus. So the Torah said, if or when somebody has a need and you lend him money, then the Torah also said that if a fellow needed a loan, sure, you can give him a loan, but it said to a person of the house of Israel, you're supposed to not charge him interest. But if it was somebody else outside of the camp, not belonging to the house of Israel, they were to be charged interest. And that's basically, the Midrash expounds on that, but however, that's how it was taken. Now, the Torah also mentioned that if a beast, like if an animal that was, allowed, like maybe cow, maybe deer, maybe goat, it said that if an animal was ravaged by another beast, the Torah said don't eat that animal, throw it to the dogs. Now, by the way, dogs here means, normal dogs, and also dogs is a euphemism for people who are outside the house of Israel. So, but particularly here, the direct imperative is to dogs, the animal, okay, not to humans. So, the point was this, that what does that teach us? That teaches us that, you got to deal humanely with the animals that God has given us. Animals that we consume for food, we are to deal humanely with them. And we are not to use them for sport, go around shooting them and hunting them down, etc. So that we need to, be wary about. Also in the book of Exodus, we were told in chapter 11, verse 7, that when the Israelites came out of Egypt, it says the dogs did not bark at the Israelites. So, the Midrash goes to say that because the dogs did not bark at the Israelites, dogs generally bark at anybody, and they didn't bark, there was a miracle that's, mentioned, but people don't really understand the miracle. So what does that mean? It means that dogs actually have a special place. Yeah, that's what it means. It means that this is why God said in the previous law, that God said if a beast was, if somebody, or if another animal like a lion maybe, ate half of the goat and half was left, it says don't use it for yourself, but give it to the dogs. Literal dogs here, not people, literal dogs. So it was given to the dogs, because that was a reward for the dogs for their good behavior towards Israel when Israel came out of the Exodus. Now, dogs, as you know, are wonderful animals. They are very loyal. They are very faithful. And, of course, a dog is a man's best friend. Yeah, this is a saying in the West and the East. So, dogs got to be given special preferential treatment, and sure. And I will tell you also one more thing of interest, which you may not know, is that if you fed a dog, try it. Feed a stray dog. If you fed a stray dog, God will send you money. Okay? Test it out and let me know. If I'm ever wrong, let me know, because I'll never be wrong. That is actually true. If you feed a dog that is stray, I'm not talking about your home dog, not talking about your pet, I'm talking about a stray dog. If there was a stray dog and he was hungry and you fed him, God will send you reward of money, physical money. We're not talking about something else. It will be money. Okay, so moving on. So this is why we said that there are several laws that are mentioned in our holy books. And the whole idea behind these laws was so that we can live, we, the house of Israel, we can live a righteous, a right ruling life. That was the point. The point wasn't, we weren't doing this like other nations, like, oh, we want to go to heaven. we weren't doing it to go to heaven, by the way, because heaven is here on the earth. Hell is also here on the earth. You can choose. You can make your life heaven or you can make your life hell. Both are present here. There is no heaven up there and there's no hell up there either. So this is the point of the Torah, is that if you live right, then you will get the rewards right over here. So maybe you don't have to come back in another life. Maybe you will come back in another life, be reincarnated, and you'll continue to reap your reward. Because if you lived a great life, if you live a good life, righteous life, God will bring you back again, and maybe you'll do it again. So yeah, wonderful. This is why it is important to do the right thing. Do the right thing. Don't, here is what I say. Whether you believe in God or not, that's not the important part so much. Because, people might say, well, I'm an atheist, or, I'm an agnostic, etc. That's fine, if they want to do that, that's okay. I say this, that those of you who want to benefit yourselves, apply the law to yourself. Apply it, test it, and see the result. Because the only way you're going to know is when you apply it and see the, like I gave you the example of the dog. God said to give meat to the dog. It doesn't have to be beast. You can go buy chicken and you can give the dog some chicken to eat. That's a righteous thing to do, and God will reward you for that, okay? That's part of our laws, by the way. If you didn't understand it, that's what I'm trying to say. And you might say, oh, I don't have chicken to eat, how can I give it to the dog? Well, when you give chicken to the dog, God will give you the money to buy chicken for yourself as well. So how's about that? So that's the righteous law. So having said that, there are many things we can say, but the most that I will say is that within our Torah, we, when we were given these laws, basically it was part of our conduct. We were told to conduct ourselves in a particular way that would be right where we lived, in the present and in the future, and even in the far, far future, like where we are right today, in the latter days. So this was the point of inherently giving us laws that would help us so that we can live righteous lives and be, good citizens. Therefore, my saying is this, that always do the right thing, always be good, always be righteous, watch your conduct, and most of all, apart from doing the right thing, like I said earlier, spend time every day, whatever that time is, whether it's 15 minutes, whether it's 1 hour a day, doing things which will help you directly, will benefit you as a person. And that will benefit you in the long run. Those are the people who follow the laws of the Torah will be blessed. And those who don't follow them, well, I'm not going to say anything negative, but I'm going to say they will not receive the benefits, okay, that the other people will. So with that, I'm going to, close, and I'm going to say have a wonderful Shabbat and a wonderful week ahead. Shabbat Shalom to you.